Hello. Philippe, a paralyzed millionaire, struggles with the boredom in the aristocratic society of Paris and looks for the meaning of life in high art. Unemployed Driss from the slums, in turn, mindlessly enjoys life, drinking with friends and chasing skirts. As fate would have it, they encounter each other, and this meeting is the beginning of something very important in the lives of both men. A black car is drifting along the streets of Paris at night. An older, bearded man and his driver are inside. Suddenly, the guy speeds up and runs a red light. He skillfully swerves between lanes, pulling ahead in the flow of cars. His extreme driving skills are noticed by the police, and they start chasing him. Philippe, the passenger, praises Driss, and they bet 100 euros on whether he will get away from the chase. They're cornered, and Driss offers a new bet that the confrontation will end not with arrest, but with an honorary escort instead. The cops twist the guy and demand that Philippe get out of the car. The man, however, is paralyzed and cannot obey the orders. The disabled man begins to fake an epileptic attack, and Driss blames the cops for detaining a terminally ill man who needs to see a doctor urgently. The frightened officers offer to escort them to the nearest hospital.
C'est dégueulasse ça, Philippe. J'ai du mal à chaque fois avec ce truc. Comment vous fabriquez ce truc bizarre?
The driver turns on the music and the car flies forward while the men shake their head merrily, singing along to the song. The cops leave them at the hospital. The heroes smoke and drive off before the doctors arrive. Retrospective. In a posh mansion, Philippe and his secretary, Magali, interview applicants for the position of caretaker. There are expensive paintings on the wall and Fabergé eggs on the shelves. In line sits the very same Driss.
C'est d'aider l'autre, je pense. C'est bon ça comme... Enfin, c'est bien ça comme...
J'aime bien le quartier.
J'aime beaucoup les légions diminuées.
It is as if the candidates compete to see who can bore the employer more. Driss can't stand it and breaks in without waiting in line. And instead of pandering to the employer, he immediately begins to poke fun at the secretary, being rude and trying to make a pass at her.
Je vois que l'humour, c'est comme la musique. Vous y connaissez rien, en fait.
He doesn't need a job. On the contrary, he is collecting 3 employment rejection signatures in order to get unemployment benefits. Philippe replies that he cannot sign the document because he is paralyzed up to his neck, so he offers to come back for the paper the next day. Driss agrees and returns home to his residential district. He greets his friends, who are drinking among the stone jugglers, and goes up to his apartment through narrow corridors, crowded with babbling children. Even in the bathroom, there's no privacy. Driss also notices that one of his younger brothers has become involved with bad people. In the evening, Driss's mother arrives. The guy gifts her the Fabergé egg stolen from the mansion.
6 mois qu'on ne t'a pas vu. Pas un coup de fil, rien. Et tu te pointes comme une fleur en m'offrant un Kinder.
The woman is so angry at her son for not helping the family and treating their home like a hotel that she kicks him out. Driss meets his friends in an alley. They drink, eat cheap food, and smoke. When everyone leaves, the guy has nowhere else to go, so he wanders around the darkness of the neighborhood. He only manages to get warm and get some sleep on a subway train. At the appointed time, Driss appears at the gate of the mansion. Yvonne, who serves as a butler, greets him and leads him inside the house, showing him the bedroom that the boss's caretakers contracted to occupy. Driss is impressed with the size of the bed, as well as the luxurious private bathroom, in which no one will disturb him anymore. He takes the document from Philippe, with the coveted signature that guarantees an allowance.
Bon, je veux dire, ça vous gêne pas de vivre sur le dos des autres? Ça vous pose pas un petit problème de conscience?
Ça va, merci, et vous?
The man offers the guy a month's probation and bets that he won't even last 2 weeks. After a night of wandering around, the guy doesn't think for long. Though he doesn't get a good night's sleep on the soft bed either. It's time to work. The masseuse shows the drowsy Driss how to stretch the disabled man's muscles and get him into the wheelchair properly. With disgust, the guy also learns how to wash his boss's head and put on his compression stockings. Now it's Philippe's turn to poke at Driss.
Bah quoi, vous m'enfilez mes bains. Vous avez une très jolie petite boucle d'oreille, moi je trouve ça très cohérent.
Driss begs to at least not be forced to wipe the man's ass. This issue is put aside for later. Philippe's daughter, whom Driss periodically encounters, also lives in the house. Elisa behaves arrogantly, and Driss somehow scares her and her boyfriend off when they come to make out on the roof of the mansion. The new assistant learns how to feed his boss properly, sorts out his letters with him, and, of course, enjoys the luxury, sending Magali affectionate looks. He does not always perform his tasks responsibly, and Yvonne even notices a Bowie knife and a folding baton in his belongings. It is not yet clear what to expect from a person like this. When it comes time to head outside the mansion, Driss refuses to drag Philippe into a ridiculous minivan meant to transport disabled people. It's simply humiliating, given that an awesome sports car is standing right next to it. So the choice is obvious. The heroes visit an exhibit where Philippe looks to buy a painting for 30,000 euros. Driss wonders what's so valuable about it. It's just a red blot on a white background. Philippe retorts that art is worth that much because it's the only thing one leaves behind after death.
Connerie ça, Philippe. Moi, pour 50 euros, je vais chez Casto et je vous la fais la trace de mon passage sur Terre. Hein. Je vous mets même du bleu en bonus si vous voulez.
Driss sneaks a smoke outside while Philippe is in a meeting with an old acquaintance. He did a background check. It turns out that his new employee has served 6 months in prison for breaking into a jewelry store. But that's not what matters to Philippe. Driss doesn't suck up to him or pity him, but treats him as an equal instead. So he's willing to turn a blind eye to his past. The assistant wastes no time and lures the secretary into his room. He wants to show her his bath and offers her a wash. To his surprise, the girl agrees, unbuttoning her blouse. But it is only a joke and she hurries not to take a bath, but to get away from the overjoyed guy. In the evening, Magalai writes down a poem Philippe had composed. It's part of a romantic letter he sends to a girl named Eleanor. Driss overhears the whole thing over the radio, and Yvonne scolds him for it. The unceremonious guy embarrasses her with questions about lovers and then matches her up with a local gardener who has his eyes on the woman. At night, Driss hears strange noises over the radio and goes to check on Philippe. He finds the man in poor condition, with fever and shortness of breath. Driss is on duty in the room all night, and during the next seizure, he takes him for a walk outside. These attacks are called phantom pains, and there is no cure for them. The men see beautiful girls, and Driss asks how Philippe gets his pleasure.
Donc votre truc, c'est de vous faire lécher l'oreille.
During another round of pains, the guy offers his boss to smoke certain stuff. He is surprised, but takes a few puffs nonetheless. The heroes proceed to a restaurant. Philippe talks about his wife, Alice, whom he loved very much. The love was tragic. The woman had 5 miscarriages and then died of illness. He still has their adopted daughter, Elisa, whom Driss met at the mansion before. As a young man, Philippe was involved in extreme sports and was a risky guy, and ended up paralyzed from a failed paragliding flight. Driss's probation has just come to an end, and Philippe congratulates him, but also asks him to return the stolen Fabergé egg. It was a gift from his deceased wife, who used to give him eggs on every anniversary of their life together. The guy does not confess to what he has done, though he lies so clumsily that he gives himself away. Driss meets up with his sister, whom he instructed to find the egg in his mother's house, and gets his troubled brother, who sells illegal substances, out of the police precinct. Philippe dictates another letter to his beloved lady. Driss is allowed to present and make some caustic comments. This time, he finds the poems too pretentious and incomprehensible. He is shocked that the boss has never seen this woman, even though he has been talking to her for 6 months. Philippe replies that having a deep emotional connection with another human is more important to him.
D'esprit à esprit, d'accord, mais si c'est un ton, ça serait une relation d'esprit à un ton.
Très élégant.
Driss grabs the letters and begins opening them, which angers Philippe. He finds Eleanor's phone number and immediately dials her, despite his boss's increasingly angry orders to stop. The men continue to argue while the girl hangs up on them. Eventually, Philippe gives in and doesn't get off the phone for the next few days. Eleanor tells him that she is not a toad at all and wants to see Philippe's photo with the next letter, which is very disturbing to him. Driss reassures the boss. His wealth outweighs all the disadvantages, and more importantly, the girl, after all, has been reading and responding to his letters and poems for 6 months.
Puis là-bas dans le Nord, les mecs ils cognent à force de boire. Avec vous, elle verra qu'il risque rien.
The men go to the opera house. The performance begins. Back at home, the men choose a picture to send to Eleanor. Philippe is worried and thinks of enclosing a photo in which he is not yet paralyzed so as not to scare her off. Driss convinces him not to and encloses a more up-to-date photo. But as soon as the assistant leaves, Philippe asks Yvonne to change the pictures. At this time, Philippe's daughter bursts into Driss's room and demands him to give her cigarettes. Elisa distracts him from his painting session, and this behavior pisses the guy off. He goes to Philippe and asks to show some fatherly concern, offering to do the spanking himself, since the boss is paralyzed. Yvonne nods silently. Philippe seems more concerned that his assistant has begun to paint, but he takes it upon himself to talk some sense into his daughter, though not with violence. Driss, on the other hand, wastes no time experimenting with the easel in his spare time.
C'est toi qui as fait ça.
Ouais.
J'adore.
With Philippe, they spend a lot of time on walks and add horsepower to the wheelchair's frail engine. It is Philippe's birthday, and Yvonne gathers the entire family together. Philippe calls this gathering serving the duty. An entire orchestra is invited to the mansion for the occasion. But Elisa sits in her room and does not come out to the guests. Driss finds her in distress. It turns out that she's broken up with Bastian and even swallowed pills. Luckily, not the dangerous ones. The guy has dumped and insulted her, so she offers Driss to teach him a lesson and is even willing to pay. Philippe, meanwhile, is raising the prices of Driss's paintings with a smile on his face. His acquaintance hesitates, but is clearly considering the offer of 11,000 euros. Driss learns from Yvonne that Magalai sometimes gossips about him and recently had an argument with her boyfriend. He's full of hope. Philippe futilely tries to introduce Driss to symphonic music, but the latter only scoffs at the melodies of the commercials. Instead, he turns on the dance music and starts dancing, infesting the guests with his fervor. The evening ends with the disco. While putting his boss to bed, Driss opens a letter from Eleanor with a picture of her. Philippe likes the girl's appearance. She writes that she will soon be passing through Paris and offers to make an appointment. Driss also finds time to take care of Elisa's problems.
Alors Bastien, tu me reconnais?
Ouais.
Ouais.
Qu'est-ce qu'il y a?
C'est pas bien ce que t'as dit Elisa. C'est pas très joli.
Felipe gets very nervous before his date. He chooses an outfit for a long time, arrives early, then tries to relieve his anxiety with alcohol, but eventually he can't stand it and runs off before the woman arrives. Driss, meanwhile, arrives at his mother's work, who has to make a living as a janitor. He sees the woman finish her shift and leave, but hesitates to talk to her. Plus, his boss calls just in the nick of time to pick him up. The men escape the anxieties of meeting other people by taking to the skies in a private jet. Felipe hands Driss an envelope, 11,000 euros from the sale of his first painting. The flights continue, and this time Felipe invites his assistant to try paraglider. He doesn't immediately agree to this crazy idea, but doesn't pass up the opportunity either. Returning to the mansion, Driss, to his surprise, meets his troublesome brother inside, who has found his address at the employment center and has come to ask him for help. He's in trouble with the law again, though this time it's worse. Felipe sees that Driss is absorbed in his family's problems and asks him about Adama. It turns out that he is Driss's cousin and that Driss's mother is really his aunt. Driss's true name is Bakari. His real parents live in Senegal, and when he was a child, they gave him up to a family of childless relatives who lived in Paris. But then his aunt was able to have children again, and after his uncle died, she had kids from other men as well. Felipe suggests that Driss take care of his family and leave his job. He agrees and soon quits. He says goodbye to the servants, and it turns out that Yvonne and Magalai have been making fun of him all this time. The girl has no interest in men at all. Driss leaves the mansion, accidentally discovering that Felipe has switched the photographs to hide his disability from Eleanor. Meanwhile, the new assistant, who is hired to replace Driss, makes Felipe sad. The man doesn't shave his beard anymore and suffers from emotional breakdowns. Nothing makes him happy. Driss returns to his neighborhood and solves Adama's problems. After showing off his erudition at a job interview, he gets a job as a driver for a transportation company. Felipe is getting worse, and Yvonne calls the former assistant for help. The men race in a car through Paris at night, having awesome adventures. This is the scene from the beginning of the story. After being escorted by the police to the hospital, they drive through France to watch the sunrise on the coast of the North Sea. Driss shaves Felipe and again takes advantage of his helplessness to make jokes.
Je me suis appliqué. Il faut ouvrir les yeux.
They arrive at a restaurant, where unsuspecting Felipe discovers that Driss has arranged a date with Eleanor. He also gives him back the stolen Fabergé egg as a parting gift. The girl arrives, and Felipe, who can no longer escape, does not hold back tears of happiness and gratitude. By the way, this story is based on real events. The real Felipe happily married for the second time. They even had 2 daughters. And Driss opened a business and also raises 3 kids. And they're still close friends. As always, look for the title of the movie in the description of the video. In the meantime, let us know in the comments. Do you have a friend who knows how to get you out of your routine and make you feel alive again? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like so that more awesome retellings come out as often as possible.